Hey guys, having a little issue trying to come up with a good way to organize this. So I'm not going to try it. I'm just going to rant it out. It's probably going to be pretty long. A commenter said had asked me about my opinion on running an Oriental Adventure, maybe specifically the Oriental Adventures. If I'm not mistaken, from 3.5, but I'm going to just make this about any Oriental Adventure. And the issue was that some of the players are actually Japanese or know quite a bit about Japanese culture, and this potential game master, did not. In my opinion on, and my 2 cents on how to do it, how to run a game. Maybe some background information, that kind of thing. So I'm going to go over some like my top 5 things, and I'm going to preface this by, of course, saying if you can't see me, then you could probably tell by my voice and my appearance that I am not Asian, nor do I have that in my background that I know of. I've never lived in Japan or Okinawa or China or Thailand or the Philippines or anything like that. I am not an expert at this at all, in the least bit. I can only give you information that pertains to role-playing games specifically. So, disclaimer, if I offend somebody out there who's of Asian descent or has a far greater knowledge of any kind of Far Eastern philosophy, history, information in general, I'm apologizing right up front because, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. So just credit it as, here's another dumbass. All right, so don't flame me, please. I'm going to show these at the end, but I just want to give some people those of you who have made it this far along in the video or listening to it, some information on where I get some of my information and some of my best resources. This is a book called Iai, and it is literally spelled I-A-I, and it is the art of drawing a sword. I've practiced many of the techniques out of here. This was suggested as a buy for me, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. This is a newer book. My old dog-eared one I actually gave to another student when I was teaching martial arts. But this book goes into great detail about drawing a katana. And that is all this book is about. It is about the fine art of drawing a katana. But without going into too much detail, on page 4 and 5, it details and gives the names of all of the components of a katana, how it is put together, and all of the components that go into making a katana, including looking at the blade from the point end first and its shape, as well as the fact that on pages 6 and 7, it actually has a huge description of what is essentially called the temper lines. And the temper lines are if you look at the blade from the side, how the metal has like an artistic flair to it, like a wave design. And so it gives the family names of all the different wave designs and their purposes and such. So, great book. It also details the story about the 47 Ronin in the back and the one civilian that was buried alongside them. It's a great story. You just Google it. You'll find it out there. These 3 books, Playin Games, strangely enough, Mystic China, Ninjas and Super Spies, my version's beat up. And what? Riffs Japan? What the hell did I put that in there for? Playin Games gets beat up quite a bit by their things, but there's lots of us out there that, it's like a guilty pleasure. For good or bad, they've actually included quite a bit of useful information in these books, and you can pick them up real cheap. Here out in the Midwest, we have a half-price bookstore, and you can find these things, I don't know, dirt cheap. I think I picked up my Ninjas and Super Spies for like $3 or something. This book, Samurai, okay, by Mitsuo Kuri, right there. Go ahead, Google that up. This book is to me, is a godsend of nothing but actual pictures of those in traditional dress. Every single page has a person dressed in a model dressed in traditional garb and through different time periods. And if you want to blend time periods, which most role-playing games, it's more for story and flavor than it is for, accuracy. Great stuff. They have in here Christian samurai. There's Ronin, all kinds of things. So I've used this plenty of times to get an idea for guardsmen, warriors. You need a real quick picture of a samurai. Bam, and it has them in all of their different garbs. So you have fully armored ones. You have them in their peacetime garb. You have peasants. So there's various versions of this particular thing. They even have samurai with firearms. Talks about that's the Christian samurai. I'm just randomly flipping some of these pages so that there's actually something visual instead of my stupid face looking at you all the time. But anyway, is that the one with the firearm? I can't tell. It's been so long since I've opened it up. There we go. Samurai with a firearm. Okay, so yeah, samurai with a katana and a rifle. Yeah, a little different. But anyway, I use those as elements for my games, and I've used them before. You can just Google up, of course, Google up some images and use them as examples, and awesome. But anyway, if you're seeing this, Mitsuo Kuri, look that up. And lastly, my bona fides. Many of my videos, you can see behind me, there's this rack here, and there are these are my certificates for earning my black belt. That's this one large one in the back is my first degree. That's actually my third degree. But I wanted to show you guys something, just so it's a little personal information, but I just wanted to share something with you. I'm holding up my my certificate right here, and right at the very top, right here, there's a pink. It looks like a pinkish stamp with a number in it, and that pinkish stamp is only half of the stamp because it's not quite round, but it's like a roundish symbol, and that the other half of that stamp is on a card, and that card goes into a ledger that symbolizes my instructor on designating me as according to this, is a second degree black belt. Now, with that, I also received a card. Now, I know it's kind of silly because, back in the day it was like, well, hey, if you learn martial arts or something, your hands are a deadly weapon and you have to be classified, you have to register your hands as a deadly weapon or something like that. Well, in a strange way, it's actually true. You receive this card, and on this card, if I can place my finger down here, here we go. On this card, my index finger is pointing to a number that corresponds to the same number that is at the top of here, A1223. And right here, Nidon, second degree, Shodan, Nidon, Sandan, goes on from there, is my black belt degree. And I received this in, let's see if we can close in here a little bit, back in '09. I can't really tell. But on the 6th day of June in the year 2009. So it's been a little while. I still have the information in my head, but I just wanted to share that with you guys. Here's my other card. I still have back here. This is my first degree card, and then I received this as my second degree card. And on the back of the card, of course, there is a stamp, and it is signed both by my instructor, and there's also the person who gave out the award. So it's not just one person, but it has to be signed by two. And then when you take your test, there's a minimum of 3 judges that judge it. Anyway, going on quite a bit about my background, which is not that important, and some of the things that I use. So let's go on with how to do an Oriental adventure. All right, the first one is going to be face. And face, as opposed to Americanized sensibilities, face is the idea that not only you, but everyone related to you, including your ancestors, future and past, those that will be born after you and those that were born before you, are impacted by the things that you do and the things that are done to you. And there's a great reverence for ancestor. You would almost call it ancestor worship. So that if a family, let's say a family relative committed a crime, that stain on your family would harm your face. And so therefore, although you did not commit the crime, you would be bound to make amends for the damage done by your family and accept the punishment to you, although your family member did commit that crime. And the difficult part about playing in an Oriental adventure is the acceptance of those things, because of our Western Americanized mentality is to throw off those things, like, oh, whoa, just because my brother stole the king's fortune doesn't mean I should be punished for it. But in the classic Asian mentality, it is your job to make amends for that, as each other family member should. Also, more immediately about face, about the term face, is that it's not just your face, but you can think of it as having egg thrown on your face, having a pie slapped in your face. Not physically, but it is when someone offends you, when a person of a lower station does not respect you, when someone of a higher station does not hold you in regard, and even though you tried your hardest, you can lose face. And it is something that is integral, especially to the more, I would say, traditional role-playing aspect of Japan. I don't have the game. I would definitely want to take a look at Legend of the Five Rings, which is fully immersed into that environment. And saving face is a big deal. Let me give you an example. I love giving out examples. You have the brother who committed a heinous crime, and it has cast a stain onto your family. So let's say a prince, you're traveling, your player character is traveling along with a prince, and you're traveling along, some bandits come along, they want to rob you. You can fight better than the prince. The prince is destined to become a great warrior, but he's not ready yet. But you're just a lowly, you have a stain on your family. So instinctually, you pull your katana, you defend the prince helps fight off these bandits, you kill a couple of the bandits run away. Now we have a little bit of a problem because the prince knows that you were far more honorable, more brave, more skilled in combat than this prince. But as reinforcements arrive, what do? Do you say, yes, I saved the prince's life? No. It may be that you will willingly say to the others that the prince fought off these bandits because you were unworthy to defend the prince, and allow the prince to take credit for it. And now you have the further problem of giving the prince the opportunity to save face, because the prince has lost face in front of you because you were of a lower status and had to save the prince's life. Complicated? Yes. But in essence, this is how it's done. Also, as far as that goes, we're going to go on to another subject, which is called station. And this brings up the idea that everyone is born into a particular station in life, and it is not proper to ignore your station, to live above or below the station that was given to you by birth. So, for example, you were born, but someone in your family committed a heinous crime, so now you're born under this dark mantle. It is not proper, it would not be proper for, say, your character to pretend to be a royalty, or to even speak on equal terms to this young prince. You are of a lower station, and so therefore you would walk a few steps behind the prince. You would never look at the prince eye to eye. Your head would always be below the level of the prince. The prince would always find a place to stand or look above you, and you would always bow your head below the prince. Whether it means bowing your head permanently, whether it means taking a knee or going down onto your knees, or splaying yourself out with your head, touching the ground, you would never, a person of a lower station would never find themselves standing above a person of a higher station. Now, when I say never, we're talking role-playing game here, so bucking the system is kind of the point in role-playing. But understanding that your character is rebelling against this, if you're playing a character that is pretending to be royal, you understand that you are really going against the system. So, in these cultures, taking pride in your station is also a great thing. So, for example, if you are a shipbuilder, you take pride in building ships. If you are a leather worker, you take pride in curing and maintaining leather and stuff. You are a sword maker, you take pride in making a sword. And there's so many elements involved, and you can break it down. Someone takes pride in weaving the silk that becomes the sword's hilt. Let me see if I can show you something here. This, of course, is one of these dime store things, but the way the sword's hilt, this of course is just canvas. It's not anything special, but silk would be woven and it would be blended together to make this handle, so that as the fingers go around, they fit into these openings and these grooves, so that as the hand tightens against the blade, the fingertips and the bumps in your hand would go around it, and the pinky tightens first as well as the other fingers going along. Anyway, woven, one family, that's all they would do, is weave the silk around these handles. All right. Tea ceremony, culinary skills, fashion, poetry, flower arranging, dancing and singing. All these things, when taken to it is extreme. That the people born into that station, if your station is to be a cook, that is what you do, and you take pride in every element of it, from gathering the vegetables and boiling the water and adding in the seasoning and serving the meal, with a nice music in the background and a breeze blowing from the ocean through the open rice paper walls. You would take pride in that. And so player characters, strangely enough, may be at different stations, and so one player character could be enthralled to another player character as a slave, as a lower station person. It's just part of the culture. Third part would be fugue, and that's the only word I can think of, which is fugue. Fugue, in this instance, would be saying one thing but meaning something else. There's a lot of in the culture where there's this tension that is underneath the surface, where enemies that are ready and willing to kill each other are able to speak in a cultured, civilized manner to each other, even though they know an hour from now one of them may be dead, killed by the other. There's this culture that allows them to speak in fugue, where emotional outbursts may be rare, but those outbursts are amplified by the simple words that are used in words and phrases used in their language. And also this fugue ability allows them to have open conversation amongst many people, but specifically they may be directing their words specifically towards one person. So for example, the young prince may be in love with the princess from another kingdom, but is unable to profess his love because they're both going to be, they both have to marry, different people for political reasons. And so they may be having this simple conversation in front of everyone. But the fugue, the underlying tension in their words, allows them to bring across this passion to one another. Difficult in a role-playing game, sure, but the simple way is just to metagame it. So, for example, one person goes to another and says, "It is good to see you," and then underneath they're saying, "I haven't seen you in a long time, and I cannot wait to see you privately in my chambers." And the other one says, "Yes, it has been a long time. I would very much love to catch up," which the underlying tone would be, "Yeah, I want to rip my clothes off too and be with you as soon as we can, get these formalities out of the way." So, using that fugue in the speech, and you could just metagame it. It probably isn't a big deal. It's a major part. The last two things I would say is that honor is a big deal. Honor above all. Now, don't get it twisted. Chinese culture is very different from Japanese culture. Okay, Chinese culture is different from Japanese culture. In China they use fork and knives. They sit up at the table. In Japan they can use chopsticks and sit cross-legged. Those kind of things. Chinese society, you'll see more emotional outbursts than you probably will with ancient Japanese culture. But yes, there is a difference. Role-playing wise, I wouldn't go too deeply into it until you start to learn the setting and the players start to learn a little bit more about the setting that you're giving to them. I wouldn't worry about it. If, as a game master, if you start to get into trouble where the players are ham-fisting you, like, this isn't what the culture is like, that isn't what the culture is like, I would just I'd have to back away from the table and say, listen, if you want to run the game, fine. If you want to give me a couple of helpful hints here and there, maybe, sure. If you're going to hand fist me and like backseat drive my setting, you can go away. And I feel that way with everything. I may know more about Star Wars than the game master who's running the game, but it is not my job to edit every single thing coming out of the game master's mouth. My job is to sit there as a player, enjoy what they're giving me, and take that enjoyment and learn to live with it. Afterwards, after the game, they want some pointers. Sure, I'll say, you know what? Really, the Star Wars world, Tatooine didn't have any. It didn't have any oceans on it. It didn't. It was a complete desert world. Yes, it was a complete desert world. It didn't have any water on it. So, I didn't correct you during the game, but actually that world didn't have any water on it. I mean, we can make up a reason how the water got there, but honestly, that water, it didn't have any water on it. Oh man, I didn't know that. You should have told me. Well, I thought it wasn't appropriate. You were on a roll. I didn't want to kill the story. You were flowing so good. So, if you want to retcon it, fine. If not, don't worry about it. It's not really a big deal. We had a great fun. So, yeah, just let it go. But, just in the future, I can write down some planets and some of their things for you if you want. Yeah, I'll take that, sure. Don't kill the flow if the flow is going, even if it's incorrect, quote unquote, incorrect for that gaming world. So if you're running this game and you're running an Oriental Adventure and you have people backseat driving your game, frankly, if it gets annoying, I'd just back off from the table and say, hey, listen, look, if you want to run the game, that's fine. Otherwise, please don't stop correcting me every 2 sentences. But let me get back to honor. Honor is a big deal to the point that samurai would give their lives for their honor. And that's a big deal that Americanized senses are a little hard to wrap their heads around, that they would give their lives for a king that they may not like. They would give their lives for an ideal that they may not succeed in. Perfect example is the movie The Last Samurai. They rode into battle against machine guns with swords and horses and were mowed down by Gatling guns. Yes, they could have snuck around in the woods and backstabbed people. Yes, they could have said, hey, let's not do this, or let's pick up some guns. Yes, there's more practical ways around it. And honor has nothing to do with practicality, has nothing to do with personal survival. It is all about personal, my word, and I will give my word. It's all about personal sacrifice. I will give my life to protect the king. I will give my life to stand up for what I believe in. And many times, let's say you are a peasant, and you know as a peasant that an enemy is sneaking into the land, but it is illegal and improper for you to approach the king, to go into his, you're a lowly peasant. You can't go into the king's chamber. But it's necessary for you to warn the king directly because there are spies in the king's kingdom. So as a peasant, what do? Well, honor bound, you would illegally go into the king's chamber and say, King, there are spies in your kingdom. I know where they are. There's an imminent attack. King listens to you, says thank you very much for what you've done, but you've entered in my place. I'm going to have to kill you. And the peasant will go, you know what? You're absolutely right. You're right. I'm wrong but I'm loyal to the kingdom, so I will do this. I will sacrifice my life knowing that I cannot approach the king, but I need to warn this good king about what will happen. And could the king spare his life? Sure, but that would be improper. The king would lose face. How could a king let a lowly peasant approach his private chambers? That can't be possible. Exile? Sure, maybe. Some other kind of punishment? No. But then here's how the king may solve it. I will kill the peasant, but I will give him a samurai's death. Honoring the family. Hey, peasant, I will kill you, but I will let you know that your family members will never, ever have to work a day in their life. I will bring them up into my my royal entourage, and they will serve. Your family will serve me until my death, and they will serve the king after me and all my descendants. And the peasant's like, wow, whoa, you're going to take care of my family? Yeah, go ahead and kill me. I'm wrong. So those kind of things would happen and are the strange cultural aspects that we are not used to in a Western society. And I think those are the sweetest, the coolest things to use in like an Oriental adventure. So anyway, saving face, fugue, speaking in public, but saying one thing and meaning something else, knowing what your station is, having a great sense of honor until death, and lastly, I'd say flavor. You got to add that flavor in there, that tension that sits underneath the surface, where you have these moments of peace combined with brutality, where a player character has a simple conversation with one of their hated enemies, talking about the sunlight and the birds and the smell of jasmine and the cherry blossoms and those kind of things, and asking the enemy, hey, listen, if I am to die, please return my head to my family so that they know who was the one that killed me, so that they can honor me, honor my death. And the enemy's like, yes, I will do that for you. And if I were to kill you, if you were to kill me, please return my sword, for my son will take up the mantle to avenge me if you kill me. Yes, I will return your sword to your son. It is a family heirloom, and I will do this for you, and I will make sure that your son will have the opportunity to avenge your death at a later time when he becomes a man of age. And if he wishes to challenge me, then I will be there, ready for him. Those kind of things are very Asian and very Oriental in a role-playing sense. So you want to incorporate those things. So I hope this was helpful. Gave a little bit of my personal information as well. There's plenty of resources out there. So many resources that it can be overwhelming. But you got to remember, it's a role-playing game. This is a game, and you want to immerse yourself in the flavor. It's not a matter of being accurate. It's a matter of having a feeling of accuracy, if that's what you're going for. If you're going more for like a more mystical, strange kind of thing, go for something like that. Look at something like Ninjas and Super Spies and Mystic China, where there's like, oh man, there's creatures and spells and all those kind of things, where you have martial artists and stuff like that who have can walk across water and fire fireballs and or necromantic magic and all that kind of thing. That's not real life. So if that's not real life, then why do we have to mimic the actual culture? You don't. It's a game. So again, even something like Rift's Japan, it's a fun game. Great. I don't know, something about the artwork in this thing just boggles my mind. It's so sweet. But I would definitely use that in my my Oriental adventure. And again, you know what? Don't let people backseat drive your game. If someone is that adamant to have their Asian culture portrayed that accurately, then I would suggest that they do it themselves. So anyway, I know I'm sitting quite a bit off camera here for the most part, but yeah, it's a difficult thing too, especially when you're trying to do other cultures and stuff. Like right now, I'm reading Mystic Britain from RuneQuest, and it's a hard read for me because it's not a culture that I'm used to, and it's highly accurate. So anyway, I'm starting to fade a little bit, getting a little ranty. So anyways, DBJ, Oriental Adventures, my 2 cents. I hope it helps. I hope I've been a little creative. I hope I didn't destroy any thoughts you had about running a game that way. So, DBJ and I am out.